everything is growing so well at the moment. I see new growth on most of my plants over here, which means that we're in a position to cut off some of the uglier, older leaves that have just kind of suffered over winter a little bit and make room for new growth. And I'm still committed to being a little bit more thorough with my plant care. Today we're taking all of my plants out of the office. We're going to look at them, we're going to style them, make sure they look as good as possible, cut off any ugly leaves, see if they need anything else, and then we'll take them outside. We're thoroughly going to hoist them down, make sure that they're clean, happy and healthy, and then we're putting them back and rearrange the room to hopefully look even better than it does right now. Basically, today is a big plant care day and I would love to take you along. Hello everybody and welcome back to my YouTube channel. My office, my favorite room. You guys are actually currently on my desk, so that's where I spend most of my time. And I am privileged enough to have this beautiful backdrop. Now, over the last few months, some of the leaves have suffered a little bit, barely cosmetic damage. Overall, the plants have actually done quite well over here, even during winter. But now with spring approaching, I definitely see lots and lots of growth. Like, I don't know if you can see this. This is so beautiful. I really just want to show you some of the most beautiful plants that I have and some of the most beautiful leaves I probably have ever grown. These are my absolute favorites, right? Only the really precious ones get to make it into my office, and because they're the most precious ones, I want to be as thorough as possible with my care routine. So I want to take you along, and I usually try and do that at least once a month, but I've been really busy, so it's probably been about a month and a half or almost 2 months since the last time I've done this. This room is actually very small with just one step. I can reach you, but I was thinking maybe I'll set you up in the living room, and then as I'll take you out, we can look at each plant individually, assess what they need and so on before taking them outside for a thorough cleanse and watering. So let's do that. First thing, what I always do, because I'll always bump into these lights when I move the plants around, I will get rid of my 2 lights. Beautiful. Look how dark it is in here without the light on. I get surprised every time. Wow, so sad. Look at it. It's just a wall of darkness, huh? But it is nice to not have to worry about bumping into something. Look at this. Look at it. By the way, those are Mother Life Spectrums. They're extended. They are basically 2 mounted on top of each other. Then I've got 2 of those, and they are linked in the description as always. And while we're on conditions, the light obviously supplement light, and then this is my Dyson fan over here. I've got that set up opposite of my wall of philodendron, and in winter I can set it up to heat this room. So in winter I usually try and keep the room at around 20 degrees. In summer I can't cool the room down with the Dyson, but it at least provides airflow, right? Because it's quite a small room with a lot of plants. Naturally the humidity is quite high because of all of the water evaporating from the moss poles as well. But airflow is also really important. It doesn't necessarily, it's probably a better thing to not actually cool the room, at least for the sake of the plants. But airflow is really important, especially if you have so many plants in one room with so many leaves kind of overlapping and so on. You really want to make sure there's airflow to prevent fungal issues, especially when we bring them back later on, right? There will always be a few water droplets left here and there, and I would hide for those to cause visual damage, fungal issues and so on. So the fan is on most of the time during summer to just provide airflow in here. And because it's such a small room, I do not need to supplement humidity. I mean, I don't supplement humidity in any other room either, because Sydney is naturally quite humid, but specifically in this room, I really don't need to supplement because we've got so many plants in here. All of them are on moss poles. Some of the water from the moss poles is evaporating, so naturally this room has quite a bit of a humidity boost. And then over here, you should be able to see the light coming from this side. That is a south facing window. Keep in mind I'm in the southern hemisphere, so that's the worst exposure. So I've got a few 4 plants in that window, and they were fine even during winter, but now with summer approaching, there is a little bit of westerly sun coming in the afternoon. So really only like 2 weeks ago or so, I started getting a little bit of direct afternoon sun hitting these plants over here, and then that will increase over the next 3 months and then decrease again. And then for the second half of the year, I get no direct sun in here at all. So these plants rely on natural light. Anything over here relies on the mother grow lights. All right, big tick on the conditions. Now we can focus on care. So let's take all of these plants out and look at them one by one. Oh, and guys, by the way, that sort of treatment I actually do for all of my plants, not just the ones in the office, but I have so many plants that I kind of do it in stages. So yesterday I did everything in this corner of my living room. The day before I did everything on this side, the side that you can't see. And the day before that I did all of my anthuriums. So I mean, technically I could probably do it all in one day, but it's just a little bit easier to do it in stages if I have the time for it anyway. And then usually I use the opportunity to film and so on as well. Keep in mind, guys, this is my job, right? So I can obviously be a little bit extra. All this time, where's my coffee? Okay, I got all my tools. I always walk backwards with them because if I bump into things, then, you know, the petiole's just gonna brush this way, whereas if I go this way, I can just snap it easily. That's not a good explanation. I am in love with this plant at the moment. This is my Philodendron Titanium, which is a Verrucosum and Serpens hybrid. It has the most stunning red backs, the most hairy petioles ever, and look at this chlorophyll. Ugh! Look at the sheen of this plant. Everything is just so beautiful. It's done really, really well as well. I've done a video on this plant recently, and in that video I showed you that before the petioles were kind of facing left and right and you could mainly see pole. I then changed its position so the light comes from the front, and now all of the leaves want to face forward, which I love. But because they all face forward, this plant is very, very unstable. There's only so much I can do about it because obviously the plant is still huge. But I think I definitely want to cut off some of the uglier leaves down there. I also want to cut the twine. You can see that at some stage I used twine to manage these petioles. But now that I cut it, the petioles are actually still staying in place, right? So I can now cut the twine. I don't need it anymore. They've done their work, and it was kind of just to help the plant find its way. It might have done it naturally just based on light exposure anyway, but I feel like this way I'm getting results faster and more extreme results, or like just better. I'm just in control. I like control, okay? Now, what I do not like is these ugly leaves. I think I just was a little bit too liberal with my water provision historically. I have since changed it and the new leaves seem much better. But yeah, I just don't like looking at these ugly leaves. And you saw that wall of aeroids, right? Of course, when we're looking at each plant individually, I would love for each plant to have as many leaves as possible. But they need to work as a collection. So sometimes these leaves might shade leaves of another plant, and then an ugly leaf is shading a beautiful leaf. A beautiful plant isn't getting enough light because an ugly leaf is stealing all of it, and so on. So it is not actually about getting each plant to have as many leaves and as big leaves as possible. It is about creating a display using all of them in one go, right? So the goal is to create that sort of wall. So sometimes more isn't more. But I think I might keep this leaf for a little bit longer, just because I can. But I also want to try and fix the stability issue. So I've got a garden stake here. Now that garden stake is technically going to be too big, but look, we're gonna have to do an extension very soon anyway. So I'm just doing that in advance. I just love this plant so much. I really, really don't want it to fall. Ideally, you do that in a part where the plant hasn't attached yet. Like I did it at the top, so that none of the roots will be impacted by this. And sorry guys, I have you on crazy wide angle today, so I hope everything is still visible for you, but some of these plants will become really big, so I needed to use the big lens. Straight away you can see that this has much more structure now because I put the garden stake in with a little backwards tilt. Now I could technically do the same down here, but I actually think if I bring this too close to the garden stake, then I'm actually making it top heavy again. This way I'm actually having this natural backwards lean. So I think I'll do nothing. Just with the next extension, I will support the next extension on this garden stake as well. Anyway, I'm happy with that. All right, let's see how much green waste we accumulate by the end of this. Now, I'll take it outside and I'll hook it into my umbrella. Bradley, you can come outside if you behave today. It is such a beautiful day. 26 right now, going up to 29, super sunny. So we actually need to, UV 8, so very high. So we actually need to be careful to not have these plants exposed to too much direct sun. They do not like that. You can even see the reflection of the sun on my floor over here hitting me, right? All right, next one. Geez, and that speed will never get done. It's actually great. I get to give you an update on all of these plants as well. All of these are my favorites. Philodendron Patriciae, also done a full video on this, and I've had a couple of leaves, had very severe cold, wet fungal issues over winter, so I chopped them off and I also chopped between the stems to get the plant to reshoot. I did not want this leggy emptiness on my pole. So we are very, very slowly establishing a reshoot. And lots of good root growth, so you can probably, yeah, you should be able to see this now here where my finger is. Very happy with that. Roots in the pole as well, some even sticking out, that's good. I have been very conservative with watering this plant since the cold induced damage or since the fungal issues, because I think I just overdid it with the watering a little bit. So anyway, see how we go. Now that it's getting warmer, I shouldn't have to worry about the water provision that much anymore. What I mean by that is I can be more liberal with my water provision because it is warmer, the plant is growing faster. I'm less worried about there being too much water to cause rot issues and so on. Rot likes cold and wet, right? Warm and wet is usually fine. Not wet, moist. Moist! What I just noticed is that if I show you all of these plants now, they're all dehydrated. Wow, this plant is so big. I need to go way further back. This is my Philodendron verrucosum. You can see it's a bit dehydrated, right? These leaves are not super, super perky. I haven't watered the last 3 days leading up to this day because I knew I was going to take them out and water them thoroughly anyway. Yeah, not a biggie though. I think everything is fine over here. I could probably get rid of this latest leaf over here. It's not bad, but it does take up a lot of space. Is that the right leaf? Yeah. And this plant is growing heaps of extra floral nectaries at the moment. So I really gotta clean that up. Look at these beautiful leaves. Look at these. Oh my God, it's so stunning. It is also growing inflows over here. Can you see this? This is an inflow. I do not want the plant to waste time on inflows. Over here as well. Over here I already ripped them out. Look, this is also super, super front heavy. But that's usually counteracted by the heavy pots that I put them in, right? Anyway, I'm so happy with this plant. It's my favorite plant of all time, right? And it's growing a new leaf over here as well, which looks to be smaller. Can you even see this? I don't think you can see anything. This plant is so big. Now there's also a new caterpillar over here, and there's a big inflow here, I believe. Let's have a look. You probably shouldn't do this with the caterpillar, but I always do that with the caterpillar because YOLO. Okay, have a look. This is one big inflow. This This is the new cutter fill over here, and this is a huge inflow. You know what? I think I might actually let it develop. I've never let a verrucosum flower develop. But I believe because the plant is putting so much energy into the inflow, this leaf is significantly smaller. So I think I might have just maxed out this plant. I think this is probably as mature as it gets. From here on, it will flower. After the flower, it will probably start growing smaller leaves until I chop it, which it's due for a chop very soon anyway, and then that's it. Not a bad thing. I don't think I could possibly handle bigger leaves than that. But I actually really want to show you this plant when it's not dehydrated. So let's have a look at it later when we're done. Bradley, you behaving? Wow, it is warm out there and sunny. I should have done it yesterday. My El Choco is probably the one plant in there that is not happy. I cut these leaves. I don't know if you can see anything. I think it's too sunny, hey. So I'm really struggling with that harsh sun coming from there, but we'll make the best out of it. Now I chopped this up because basically what happened over here is from here all the way to here, the plant grew about 8 nodes without a single node producing a leaf that didn't rot away. Or they all produced a leaf, but the leaf rotted away before it was able to unfurl. So I decided I gotta chop the plant. Something's gonna change to like snap her out of it. And post-chop, I now get my first leaf that actually wants to leave. That's good. I'm contemplating to just chop them all off. Later. Good news, bad news. Philodendron esmeraldense has grown a beautiful leaf, which I then proceeded to, by accident, rip. It was getting stuck on the cable ties of the El Choco pole and it just ripped holes into it. But look, it's just cosmetic. It's just annoying me. The plant couldn't really care. But it is way outgrowing its pole. Have a look at these crazy roots that it has. It is super dry as well. So I think we need to do an extension here, but I don't have an extension. Let me quickly go downstairs, grab an extension. You're already overheating. The sun is way too harsh. Wow, today's not a good day for filming. Let's put the extension on first and then we'll see what else this plant needs. So I'm just keeping an eye on Brettles as well. He's just in the garden, but it's such a nice day. I want him to enjoy it out there. I have a nice new fence, which is also a little bit taller, but don't you be fooled by the body composition of my little baby. He looks chunky, but he's actually very athletic. He can jump that fence in like with no issues at all. Alright, I'll just put the extension on, done that hundreds of times. Just fill that little gap over there. That was the gap that I had the water bottle sitting in. Right, so this step I only do once a month. But throughout the month I just use my water bottle upside down technique. So they all have like a little hole at the top where the bottleneck will fit in. So I filled that. And now I can put the next one on. When I do the extension I always use dry moss poles so it's easy to work with. And then I'll go ahead and water them. Because I store them dry, they also won't go moldy. So I recommend making them. Use moist moss when you make them so you know how much moss to put in. And then just put it in the sun to dry them out. And that will also kill any mold spores, the UV. Or at least in theory should. Where's the bebe? You okay? Oh, he's so good out there. And now I'm just connecting the poles so they don't twist. This plant I've had for a long time now actually. It never really grew that well for me. And it really took like 2 or 3 years for it to really grow into something that looks good. But now I'm pretty happy with it if it wasn't for the visual damage. Now the other positive about this extension is that I can now redo the wires, or like the twine. You know, I use the twine to style my plants and to tie up long petioles to the moss pole. I mean, look at this. Where am I going to fit this with such a long petiole? But now I can bring it up. And because I have a taller pole, I have more leverage. It was really hard to do that when the pole was only here. Where am I going to leverage if I can't leverage this down? You know what I mean? So the pole extension is now actually also going to help me create a nicer display for this plant. Which means I need twine. Let me get twine and you don't fall, yeah? But it's still fine. Forgot the twine, huh? Twine. And guys, I've got full tutorials on that as well, on how I use twine to style my plants. Now have a look. Now I can leverage this much better. And now I used to do this process of like taking all of the plants into the shower. I used to do that every week when I had time, not when I had way less plants. Which way do you want to be, huh? That's crazy, look at it, the leaf is here, the node is actually only here. Oh, wow, crazy, crazy. I'll do this here. And again, I don't need to do that if it was just for that one plant, let's say. I'm doing it because this plant is part of a display, right? This part is one of many plants on that wall, and I need each plant to take up as little space as possible while visually creating impact. So I rather have a few beautiful, neatly displayed leaves than 100 ugly ones. And there is actually a second little plant down here, but it is so slow in sizing up, but that's okay. Still has these super long petioles that I hate. And again, a lot of extra floral nectaries on these as well. So we might actually have to spray them all with water, and then we might have to manually wipe the back of the leaves as well. Extra floral nectaries are basically, well, it's actually the nectaries are not the problem. It's the little sugar that it gives up. So extra floral nectaries create this little sugar. Sometimes they could be to deter pests, sometimes it could be to attract beneficial insects, for example, attract ants that then eat the mealybugs or something like that. But basically, for me, it just means visual damage. Now, sometimes plants have it on their petiole. Can you see this? So much sap, really sticky, sugary. Which is okay, but sometimes they also get it on the back of the leaf, especially in the midrib over here, and then that can cause some visual damage. Not so much on this plant, because this plant has really hardy leaves. In fact, these leaves are so beautiful. I really am annoyed that I messed up this leaf so much, but it's okay. It's okay. Now we're progressing so slowly. Philodendron splendid, again quite large. The other day I got so angry and annoyed at it because leaves were sticking in all directions and I was trying to move it out, and I basically took out lots of plants left, right and center, where I just decided to cut off any leaf that's kind of ugly. Like, obviously for some reason I missed this one. That's why it's looking so empty at the bottom. It's not because it's not happy, it's actually very happy. I just cut off a bunch of leaves because I didn't like them. Even this one I don't really like that much, but I very much like these leaves over here. I like the new leaf over here, and right now it's growing very quickly. Now it's only up to here, but I reckon it's going to outgrow this moss pot quite quickly. So soon enough I'll have to do another chop and extend. Now by itself this plant doesn't look that good, right? But Down below, for example, I think I have my Patricia normally. So again, I grow this plant to work in a display. So I actually willingly chopped off leaves that weren't necessarily terrible. They weren't beautiful, right? I'd rather have 2 beautiful leaves and a new one coming than having 10 leaves where 8 of them are kind of ugly and thus distracting from the other 2. Plus those other 8 down below would take up space for a whole nother plant. So another plant would have to go into a spot that is maybe less optimal because this plant takes it all up and so on. I haven't noticed this plant. I've maxed out this plant, I believe. I don't think I'm ever going to grow larger leaves than this. This is also perfectly fine. I'm not complaining. So it's not necessarily about let's hold on to as many leaves as possible for this plant. It's really just maintenance by now, right? I've grown this plant for many, many years. I've grown it very lush. I've grown it very large. Now it's really just about this plant providing impact within a display. And yeah, new leaf over here. Love when they first unfurl, how they're nice and red. That is the verrucosum parentage. Still coming through here nicely. I don't know if you can see anything. But yeah, nothing to do over here. That's actually nice for a change. Getting so sunny out there. Yesterday was a much better day to do something like that. Damn it. Especially with the velvets, they really hate the direct sun. So we gotta hurry up a bit. Or I do. You guys can't blame that one on you. That's definitely on me. Philodendron melanochrysum, aka Philodendron melanochrysis. Also done a recent video on this plant in particular. I'm finally happy again. I think these leaves are great and they're coming in quick progression. All good, can't complain, but these leaves down here have definitely suffered. To maybe give you a bit of background, this plant also aborted a couple of leaves in a couple of nodes over winter, so I decided I do not want to have this leggy stem on here, so I cut it. This stem has actually never really done anything for me, which maybe I'll just... Yeah, maybe I'll try and stem propagate this because it's a decent sized stem, right? Anyway, what it did is it reshot instead from here, and look how thick this reshoot has already become, right? So very, very nice, much thicker than the original stem was, and usually stem thickness is an indicator for how big the leaves are going to be, and we're only starting the growing season, so I'm very happy with that. But as a result of me chopping and then these leaves reshooting and so on, these leaves are obviously a little bit damaged now. I think maybe also a little bit of fungal issues induced by cold and wet. Can you even see them? These 2 in particular. You know what? These 2 leaves are the first thing I see when I walk into my office, and I hate it. So I'd rather see them gone, and same justification as before, right? I don't need 800 ugly leaves. I need a few stunning ones. And obviously that is also just my opinion. You could totally keep every single leaf on your plant. That is your plant, your decision to make. I'm bringing this in a little bit closer. It's gonna look like it's a bit diagonal for now, but it's gonna move in soon, like this. And then, yeah, if these leaves move in a little bit as well, keep in mind the light comes from the front, so these leaves should naturally move in a little bit. Ugly. The good thing is as well, is like I'm obviously very liberal with cutting off leaves over here because we're starting the growing season. I know that these plants are going to grow lots and lots of leaves very quickly now. So I'm not worried about the pole looking empty for a long time or something like that, man. Whereas in winter, when I do these maintenance days, I'm much more conservative with cutting off leaves because I know the plant might not grow another leaf for the next 3 to 4 months. Alrighty, we're done. Stunning. I'm trying to not manage the petioles over here for now, to see if the plant naturally wants to behave. Because once you manage it once, you can't unmanage it, right? Because you kind of fundamentally messed with the structure. Haha, it's to the collection. So Roy, whole video about this one coming, or it might have already happened, not too sure. I basically am deciding to not grow this on the moss pole anymore, and I think it's the only plant that's not on the moss pole in this whole office, apart from the fried egg. But it's growing quite well, but it has not given me the juvenile leaves that I want. Look at these petioles. Again, it's kind of a bit of a nightmare. But at least the plant is really, really low, right? So remember how often I cut off the bottom leaves of my plants because they're obviously the first ones to go ugly? Well, this is a plant that then really neatly slides in and covers that bottom part. So it's not competing with many leaves, right? Like, this area of my room, right, like torso, height and so on, that's where there's the most competition, because all of the plants grow leaves way up, and with these long petioles, as you saw with the Esmeraldens, the plant is like here, but the petiole is already up there. So over here on my height, that's the competitive space. Not many plants want to grow big leaves down there. So basically this one has no competition down there, so I don't need to manage or do anything with it, and it's just fine. But it is a little bit annoying. It's sending out this leaf in the wrong direction. I've decided to do nothing with it and see if it naturally wants to turn around, just purely based on the light exposure. But it basically rubs against the wall, so there's probably going to be some damage. Yeah, you can see this over there. See this little brown bit? Don't focus on my face. This brown bit there. That's where it just rubs against the wall. Doesn't look like much right now, but if it keeps doing that and then unfurls and expands, that's sort of that visual damage that I often see on my Splendid as well. This has a really, really good root system though, so that I'm really, really happy with. Right, nothing to do here for once. Oh, actually one other thing. Again, a candidate for a lot of extra floral nectaries and sugars. Like very, very much, right? Can you see this over here? All of the little sugary bits, especially at the front, in the mid vein as well. Honestly, even the floor is sticky now. Hey, baby. Philodendron glorious. Glorious. Recently chopped this in a video and it has behaved so incredibly well post chop. We are very happy with it. Good boy. Definitely some visual damage coming in here, but I'm still happy with it as it is for now. I don't have the desire to chop it just yet, but I want to bring it a little bit closer maybe to the pole. Do I? Yeah, I mean, have a look at this chaos over here, but nobody can really see this. Right? I'm also using a chopstick over here to keep the stem in the center of the pole. It's quite a thick stem, so it's hard to manipulate in hindsight. So I'm constantly staying on top of it. Also due for an extension very, very soon, but I actually want to do a whole video update. Because when I chopped this, I also chopped my Mandula, and that's about, I don't know, 3 or 4 months ago. And I've given the bottom parts to Tim for both of them. And I've thought that maybe I'll do a video recapping on the chop and then looking at what happened after the chop, aka, you know, the new shoots, the bottom parts reshooting and so on. This is probably the plant with the most extra floral nectaries and sugars. So that is definitely something that I try to do every month. Once a month, wipe the back of the leaves. Otherwise, you'll start having more and more of this yellow damage. Philodendron gigas. I gave up on this maturing. But I'm not happy with the lack of attachment that this plant does to the pole. So I'm going to cable tie this real quick. I'm not too sure why. Anyway, guess what? I have a full video on this plant as well and how I achieved the lush look, because there's probably 6 or 7 plants on here right now. One here, one here, one here, one here. Okay, maybe not that many, maybe 4. Good enough, okay? The goal was to create a lush pole, but only one shoot is really shooting the lights out at this stage. I definitely want to make sure the newest node is attaching to the pole, because that's most likely where new root growth is going to happen. But overall, quite happy with this plant. This is kind of half in my south facing window, half supported by the grow light. So I'm trying to do that. Then that way I'm trying to get growth on all sides. Not very ambitious with this plant. I just want to keep it really nice and lush and compact. You saw all of these plants so far had massive petioles with massive leaves. They're such space commitments, and I really have to be strategic about how I position them and so on. With this one, it's so easy. It kind of is a filler. So everything else goes in first, and then wherever there's space, this plant can kind of just fill a gap, but create interest and a pop of color and stunning velvets and so on. So it's a stunning plant, and it's compact and easy to display. So I like it. Guys, even the action camera out there is overheating. That's how hot it is. So I definitely need to avoid the direct sun for my plants. Alrighty guys, this one is a bit different. Whee! So sexy. Monstera Esqueleto. Look at his newest leaf. Unfortunately, this one got snapped in the blind. Oh, but you can hardly see it. Anyway, it's the only Monstera in a room full of velvet philodendron. So it's clearly special to me. I just really love this plant, and yeah, it looks stunning, and it's a great plant to have in that window. So this one just relies on the south facing window, and it's great because it obviously doesn't mind the south facing window. Initially I was actually expecting it probably would want way more light than I'm offering, but it's very happy with it. And because of the fenestration, it still lets light through, so I'm not blocking the light completely for my own sake. Like, not that much light's going through that it makes any difference to the wall of aeroids behind it. But for myself, I sit there in front of my desk right behind this plant all day. I don't want to sit in darkness, right? So I still get a little bit of natural light coming through, but it is also giving me a little bit of privacy from the street and so on. So it's kind of like perfect for that. And look at this huge root that is growing down the pole over here, all the way to here. Happy days. Alrighty guys, the second or third plant I showed you was a Philodendron verrucosum. This one is also a Philodendron verrucosum, but this is a smaller version of it. Over here I'm not aiming for maturity, so for example if it reaches the top, instead of extending the pole, I'll just trail it back down so that it just doesn't mature. I've also had it for less time, and I chopped it more frequently to stunt the growth. So the whole idea is here that I have a nice lush pole, because it's my favorite plant. It looks so good in all levels of maturity, juvenile or mature. Perfect, I love it. Also my south facing window really loves that dappled light. The idea was that I rotated around, but then I forgot about it. And I actually don't mind that, because I probably prefer looking at the red backs than the fronts. But I think I can cut 1 or 2 leaves that are a little bit ugly maybe. Like, not terrible, but there's so many leaves right now, they're all kind of covering each other. I'm just making room for beautiful leaves. And I think, I don't remember, I did a video on this as well, but I think there's like 10 shoots or so on here, right? I mean, just over here, I can see 1 new growth point here, 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 down here. Not sure how many times I said here, but often. So lots. Sorry, I was lying earlier. I forgot that I also have an obliqua there. It's so small, I keep forgetting about it. But look how gorgeous it is. That's just sitting on my desk. And I just love how lush it is. Some leaves are a little bit bigger, but these leaves down here, these tiny leaves down here, I am obsessed. And there's so many. Look how many plants are in there, because it keeps sending out runners that I keep chopping and then they keep reshooting. That way I keep it very compact. This has been on this pole for forever now. And I create lots of volume instead of having like 3 leaves dangling somewhere. Nothing to do here. Very happy with this. Still alive. even after winter. It's growing new leaves non-stop now, and I think I've got an inflow coming over here. I'm gonna do a full update video on this plant. It's been doing so well, even over winter. I honestly can't believe it. The root growth is insane. The glare is also pretty insane, but yeah, insane root growth. Very happy. That's it. That was all the plants in the office. Let's go outside and hoist them down. Okay, it's very sunny. It's very sunny, so I'm sure you can't see all too much, you know, really harsh shadows and highlights and all of this. Shit, this plant is in the full sun. And the sun is, why is the sun everywhere? Can you go away? Okay, I'm here. I need to hurry up. I need to do this. The sun is moving too quickly. It's too strong. These plants are super dry. I'm gonna speed this up for you now. Okay. The hardest part is not knocking them all over with the hose. I didn't just clean the leaves front and back. I also thoroughly watered the pole. I thoroughly watered the pot so that I'm getting rid of any mineral buildups. I'm obviously didn't see any pests, but hopefully I'm kind of proactively eliminating pests and getting rid of dust. Yeah, and clean plants are healthy plants. Oh, good. Okay, there's one plant that's slightly getting too much sun. I'll move this, and then I think it's time for me to clean the room a little bit, and I'll be back. Guys, look how sad the office looks. I'm gonna need to put you on wide angle. That's better. Look at that. Sadness. Okay, it's been maybe 30-40 minutes. Probably not enough time for them to drain thoroughly, which isn't great, but it is getting too sunny out there and I'm worried. So maybe I just need to check later on tonight to see if there's any excess water that has accumulated in the pot and empty that out. But for now, let's just get them back in and I'll show you them one by one. And I've got a time lapse set up in my office as well that I'm going to show you at the end, where you can see how I just kind of all arranged them a little bit. But I just want to show you them now because now they should be nicely hydrated, so looking a little bit healthier than before. Monstera escalado, Philodendron melanochrysum, Philodendron verrucosum, Philodendron titanium, Philodendron splendid, Philodendron glorious, Philodendron verrucosum, number 2, Philodendron esmeraldense, Philodendron gigas, Philodendron soliroi, Philodendron patriciae, Monstera obliqua, Alocasia frydek, and lastly, Philodendron El Choco. I have decided to chop the last 3 ugly leaves off because they were in the way, and I'd rather focus on getting these new shoots, there's like 4 or 5 of them, to reshoot and then grow nice leaves. They will be smaller, but honestly, El Choco is probably one of those plants that actually looks better juvenile anyway. So it's not going to look too great, but I've got a full video on this plant coming and what happened, or what I think what happened, my recovery strategy and so on. So we'll stay patient and we're trusting the process. Whee! Everything is back in place, and this is what I cut off today. But looks far from empty behind me, right? So that's kind of what I was trying to explain earlier. Maybe in itself, each plant isn't optimized from a visual perspective, But that's on purpose. I'm trying to optimize them as a collection. So as a wall, kind of like a modular green wall, right? Just made out of lots and lots of moss poles. As a green wall, I think they look absolutely stunning. Alrighty, I just need to put the lights back and then we can say goodbye. So much better. Anyway, that was a day in the life of a crazy plant person, basically. And there was just one room. So as I mentioned initially, I'll repeat that process with all of the rooms until all of my plants have had their thorough shower. And then by the time that's done, I pretty much have to start from the beginning. But honestly, I really don't mind. This is the fun part to me. Obviously, it's fun to have nice plants, but I enjoy taking care of them. I really enjoy these sort of days. This is therapeutic for me. I don't see it as plant chores. I see it as an opportunity to connect with my plants, to exercise my hobby, to learn something new, to optimize the growth, to rearrange and make my plants in my office look as good as possible. So to me, it's a good part of the hobby, and I wish I could do it more often, but unfortunately just cleaning my plants doesn't pay the bills, right? So most of my time is not actually spent on caring for plants, but rather creating content, editing content, engaging with people online, emails, live admin, and so on. But that is also fun. I also enjoy that part of my job, and I'm really, really happy that I get to do this as a job in the first place. So thank you guys, and if we want to keep it that way, let's make sure we engage with this piece of content. Make sure you give this video a thumbs up, leave a comment down below. Maybe you could leave a nice spring emoji in there to welcome the growing season over here, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Also click the bell icon so you get a notification every time I post, and hopefully I'll see you very soon. Bye!